go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender. All is well, all is well, all is well. And every day I affirm and pray that I'm blessed with everything I have. I release my fear, 'cause it's all so clear. I am held, I am loved, I am safe. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I am well, I am well, I am well. And now I see what my life can be when I trust in the process and have faith. And now I know when I just let go that I have all I'll ever need. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I am well, I am well, I am well. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender. All is well, all is well, all is well. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender. I relax, let go, release and surrender.
Ah, there's always a way. That was a last minute thing. Well, good morning. I see we're streaming to Facebook Live. That's wonderful. Welcome to One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living on this gorgeous, I hope it's gorgeous where you are, even if the weather isn't good, it's probably still gorgeous. On this gorgeous Sunday morning of the last Sunday in February, the last day of February, actually. And my name is Reverend Michelle Ingalls. And today is Practitioner Sunday. Woohoo! And we have 6 fabulous practitioners who are going to share their take with us in about 5 or 6 minutes a piece of what the journey to freedom means to them personally. And so I get to play Practitioner of the Day. And I'm on a new computer and I'm having trouble sharing my screen. So I may just have to read the quotes to you without you being able to see them. I apologize for that in advance, but that's okay. You'll be able to hear them. So let's start with an invocation and opening prayer. So I invite you to take a nice deep centering breath in and join with me in coming together in consciousness. For we know that there is only one life. And while we exhibit or express individually, we are all living in that one life, that one divine presence. It is wise, it is big, it is bold, it is beautiful, and it is present here in this virtual space as well as this geographical space and in consciousness. And we are coming together in this today to celebrate the life within each and every one of us as these beautiful expressions of the divine. And I know that everything that is heard here, everything that is felt and seen and experienced individually opens us up, cracks us open to know who we are in this one life in a more authentic and rich way that deepens our experience of life, that deepens our curiosity of what it means to be human and to be divine. And what it means to participate with this natural order and harmony of the divine presence that is moving through all of creation, and how it gives us freedom to live, to be who and what we have come here to be, which is love and be loved, and to share that experience with this collective consciousness, this one life, this beautiful thing we call God, spirit, humanity. And so I just know that everything that happens here this morning is for the highest and best good. And we bless and appreciate and feel gratitude for each of our beautiful speakers and for the wisdom that we glean from each of them. So for this and so much more, I simply say thank you. We allow it to be, and together we signify our agreement by saying, and so it is. Hoot, hoot. All right, so I have a quote. So I have this lovely little book that I pull out from time to time. Let me see if I can find my my page with my quotes. And it's called the Ernest Holmes Papers. And it's really a compilation of the talks that our founder, Ernest Holmes, gave mostly when he was in LA, when he first started his speaking ministry. He didn't really think of it as a ministry, but we do. And from one of his talks on freedom, I have this quote, and the quote is, "The more I hate, the worse I'll be. The more I love, the better I'll be. That is my freedom." That is why Tolstoy said, "We have freedom within the laws of inevitability," by which he meant we have freedom to be lined up with the laws of God. And this speaks to me because I really believe that we are free because of the order and the harmony and the structure of creation itself. We are free when we participate with this natural order, when we know how to consciously work with the law of creation and all laws, and there are many, so that we can express our divinity in and through our human lives and create wonderful and joyous lives. So that speaks to me about freedom, the freedom that we experience within the structure of law. And so for our centering today, I also took a little part of this book in that same chapter on freedom. And so I'm going to invite you to center as I read not the entire quote, but part of it. And so if you would please take a nice deep breath. And this is a centering exercise, and it's on the Holmes Papers on page 411. If you want to know that later on, I can send you my slides. And Holmes wrote, "And now, for a few moments, let us practice together what I call stretching the mind. It's a process whereby one identifies with a larger good." And he goes on. "There is one life, and that life is God's life. That life is my life now. I am that which thou art. Thou art that which I am. I am one with all the beauty of life. I am one with the strength of the wind and the wave, the glory of a sunset, the beauty of the sunrise. I am one with the song of the birds. I am one with the mother holding her child. I am one with the babe drinking from the fountain of life. I am one with the rain and the snow and the clouds in the sky. I am one with the life in the ocean. I am that which thou art, O living presence. Thou art that which I am, eternal in the now, in the here, and in this moment. And so it is. Take a nice deep breath. Be centered in that. All the givingness and the gifts of life that we receive and that we give out in kind. And I see Richard has come back. Can we hear you now, Richard?
Can you?
Yes,
You can?
I can hear him. Can everybody else hear him? You're a little low. I don't know if you can turn up your volume at all.
I can. Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, let me get
Better.
this.
Better already.
Let me get this. Okay, where is that? Bring this up. Is that better?
Down a little because now you're reverberating a little.
Okay, check. Is that
Down
good?
it's a little vibraty.
Check. 1, 2.
There,
1, 2.
perfect. Right there. You're good.
Ah, what a relief.
Oh, it's still a little vibraty.
Okay, let me take it down even further. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, it's fine.
Is that better?
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, it's life is an experiment, and we're free to pursue it and do what we need to do in order to more fully explore who we are and what our place is. You know, I was thinking, oh my, because I had prepared a thing to do this morning, and it looked like I wasn't going to be able to do it because you couldn't hear me. So I was going to have to go through a different, I was going to have to go through my iPad or something. Anyway, I'm back. What, sort of as a backup, I was thinking about uh, uh, performing What I Did for Love and talking about freedom and how we pursue. But uh, I thought I'd draw instead from my own personal experience. Okay, can you hear me? Is that good? Is that good?
Yes, Richard, it's good.
Okay. So freedom is a great word, and when you say the word freedom, people have strong feelings about it, what it means. America is a land that has always prized the word, and it's the core principle in our Constitution. But thinking about it, my own personal experience, who am I? What am I about? Uh, what do I love? Uh, and do I really have the freedom to answer these questions? And I find that as my life unfolded, I did have the possibility of doing that myself. So I've been working on what is it that I really love to do. Who am I? And pursuing this question sort of hooks us up to the core of our being, of our soul, who we are in a most fundamental way. Um, so, very briefly, I started off in New York. I took piano lessons. I know probably a lot of you way back when took some piano lessons. I stopped that. I took some physics, math classes, got a degree, bachelor's. Then I moved to San Diego. I worked for the Navy for 10 years in Point Loma. But there was something, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was very interesting, but I wasn't really fully engaged. And I was wondering what it was. But I knew that I loved music and that I wanted to be a musician. And so after a few things happened in my life, I decided I'd take the plunge. Now, one of the most interesting gigs that I had a lot of different interesting gigs. Back in the late 90s, I did a 5-year stint with a company called BlueMountain.com. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. BlueMountain.com. But I had done some previous work for the owners, and in this particular case, they called me and said, "Do you know anything about MIDI files?" And I'd done a few albums for some people, so the answer was yes. And the long and short of it, can you create some original music? We're creating these cards, these on your computer, and people can send them to each other. You know, happy birthday, happy anniversary, your dog passed away. You know, all sorts of things. So I said, sure, I can do that. And so one thing led to another. The site was free. If any of you remember that, it took off like a rocket, and they wound up with 100 million hits a month, and it was very, very popular. So it was challenging to come up. They would send me the artwork, and they would send me the text going along with the card. Could I come up with some music? And so I reached deep into what we call universal mind. And I was always able, it seems, miraculously, to very easily come up with something to go along with the card. They loved it, and apparently so did the world. Here is an example, a fun example of something. And I'll give you another example after that, but this is called Flurry. It's kind of Bach-esque. It has a sort of an interesting energy to it. It's very energetic. And then I'll play this other one for you. That was called Flurry. Now, you know, time went on, and the interesting thing is that I kept coming up with these things. And here's something that I think totally states kind of the more we find out about ourselves, uh, the more interesting it becomes, the better it gets. And here's something I call better than ever. I hope you enjoy this one. That's it.
Woohoo! Well, that was a nice little story. I'd never heard that before.
Did you hear that? Did you hear the music?
Yes, we did. We heard it just fine. It was great.
Excellent.
Can you, there, you can probably hear me better now. My volume was down. I changed my computer. So thank you. That was interesting. And let's get right into our talks with our practitioners. And I believe that, hang on a minute. I forgot to remind myself of the order of service. Who remembers who's up first? Leslie, I thought so. Wonderful, thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
So, please welcome Reverend Leslie Massapus for our first speaker.
Today's theme is Journey to Freedom. And what I'm going to talk about is a journey that each of us takes every night, and why the preparation time during this twilight time just before you fall asleep is so impactful and important for you. Now, Ernest Holmes tells us that if we know the truth, it will make us free, provided we know that that truth is going to bring about an evolution in consciousness and is going to cause acquisition of new powers and higher possibilities in our lives. Now, it's necessary for me to explain a little bit about the characteristics of the conscious and the subconscious mind and how they work here. I know a lot of this is going to be basic for some of you and is going to be a review, but it's important to know how these work, okay? The conscious mind is personal, it's selective, it's the realm of effect, and it is male. It is the conscious mind that, backed by feelings with the thought, is going to impress the subconscious mind to bring about your experiences. Now, the subconscious mind, on the other hand, is non-selective, non-personal. It is the realm of cause, and it's female. Okay. Now, listen up. I want you to hear what I'm about to say. And that's feeling is the one and only medium through which ideas are conveyed to the subconscious mind. Okay? If you've got two feelings about a subject, what's going to happen is the stronger or the more dominant of the feeling is the one that's going to drop into the subconscious mind for expression into form. Now, for those of you who are Bible scholars, the conscious mind as master and the subconscious mind of servant is in the book of Corinthians, Colossians, Ephesians, and Peter. And what it says, and I paraphrase, is the woman should be subject to man in everything. Now, we're not talking about the domination of a male in our lives telling the female everything it should do and how it should be. We're talking about how the conscious and the subconscious mind work, okay? One of the nice things to know about the conscious mind is it does not like commands. It likes persuasion. Now think about your own life. In your own life, if somebody gives you a command, says that you should do this and you should do it right now, You know what your job is. You know the way that it should be done. You've been doing it for a long time. What is the likelihood that you're going to do it right away? If you're like I am, how I react is I plant both feet and say, bet me. You may eventually get what it is that you want or ask for, but it's going to take you a little while. Okay? Self-control and mastery of your thoughts and feelings will be your highest accomplishment in your lives. But what you need to know is that we are not always given what we want, but what we feel. So that twilight time, just before you go to sleep, is when the subconscious mind is the most receptive and impressionable. So you do not go to sleep with feelings of being depressed or dissatisfied or discouraged. And you never go to sleep with a consciousness of failure. Because these are the traits. This is what you're feeling when you go to sleep. This is what's going to drop into your subconscious mind. This is the time for you to get out your gratitude list for the day and start going over it. It's the time for you to get into those affirmations that you've been working on. And it's also a good time for you to do your spiritual mind treatment, because prayer is a form of sleep. But you don't want to think about the appearances of things when you go to sleep. You want to always feel as if the intention that you set were already accomplished. Because in Romans 4:17 in the Bible, it tells us to assume feelings of satisfaction, to call conditions into being that will mirror satisfaction. Dr. Joe Dispenza, in his book, Becoming Supernatural, lets us know that everything comes from the quantum field of possibility. And the quantum field of possibility works on two elements, only two. One is intention, and one is feelings. And he gives us a little exercise that we can practice to see this. He says you set the intention of what it is that you want, and then you contemplate what the emotion or feeling would be if you already had that intention and all the different characteristics that you have. Okay. So Jim and I recently saw a Netflix video in which the male star, in asking a question of one of the children in the video, said, "What is it you want?" And the child answered, "I don't know." To which his comment was, "If you don't know, how do you know what to ask for?" So what I suggest that we all do is consciously prepare during that twilight time before we go to sleep on that's going to work in our favor and causes less expended energy and time, and allows us the closest connection with expressing that higher power in my in your life. And what I wish for all of you is to have a good trip. And so it is.
Thank you, Leslie. That was good. Wonderful. It's always nice to have a little back to basics. So our next speaker is Lisa Lazaro, one of our practitioners. Welcome, Lisa.
Sorry, it didn't seem to want to unmute. Good morning to everybody. When I was approaching this topic today, it's like I was looking at the journey to freedom, but also looking at the monthly topic of One Journey, Many Paths. And for whatever reason, I started thinking about my own journey, but then I just kept thinking about Ernest's journey. And because I feel a little bit of alignment with him in terms of the whole concept of intellectual curiosity and just needing to read one book after another. And so I was looking at his history, and he was born in 1887, and as a 5-year-old, his mother referred to him as the question mark because he was always asking why. And despite this ongoing curiosity, he hated school. And he left school at 14 because he preferred reading the Bible at home. And then he went back at 17, but only for a couple of months, because apparently he said that he preferred reading the books that he chose rather than the history books that the school chose. So you can see that he was constantly learning. And it was at 18 he went to Boston. Now his original religion was as a Congregationalist, because this was his mother's religion, and he was fine with that. And then he went to Boston, and the people that he was staying with were Baptists. And so, being as curious as he was, he explored the Baptist religion. And he said basically the only difference between it and the Congregational religion was the devil and baptism by immersion rather than sprinkle. And so then that was, he then moved on from that, because that's the period in time when he began to read New Thought. And he felt that he didn't get anything from the baptism of the Baptists, but that he was totally turned on by Emerson. And so he had, as we know, had a lot of different influences of the New Thought people in terms of Quimby and Larson and many of the other speakers of that time. But then he also, at this point in time, was introduced to Christian Science, and he read Mary Baker Eddy's book. And I think that was something that kind of ingrained further his healing perspective, in terms of, he said that he learned the possibility of healing without a religion involved with it. And so from there, at 25, he went to LA to be with his brother Fenwick, who was a Congregational minister. And he worked with him and did a lot of Sunday school and so forth, while still reading. And at 25, he was with Fenwick and became a divine science minister. And Fenwick left the Congregational church, and the two of them were doing the beginnings of Ernest's kind of work. And it was at this point, let's see, he was then at 24 is when he read Emma Curtis, or met Emma Curtis Hopkins. And I think that at that point in time, it was solidified, because he at 40, he published the Science of Mind book. He published another book before that called Creative Mind and Science and Success. But after he met Emma Curtis Hopkins is when he finally solidified and did the Science of Mind book and the Science of Mind magazine. And his basic philosophy was solidified, and he had managed to synthesize all of these learnings of these people, plus all of the different kinds of religions, which he had studied as a young teenager, into what we know today as the Science of Mind. But he continued to be a voracious reader. He had in philosophy, science, and religion, and he had a standing order with the bookstores to bring him, to give him any of the new books that he might want. At this point in time, he also was writing reviews on books. And then in the 30s and 40s, he was introduced to modern psychology, and and then it was like, going back to Leslie, he noted that 9/10 of the emotional reactions we have are subconscious. His favorite in psychology was Carl Jung, because he acknowledged a note of the spiritual. He was fascinated with psi phenomenon as well. And then in the 50s, he studied J.B. Rhine, who proved the existence of extrasensory perception, and the proof of an inner self with transcendent power was how he termed it. And so anyway, today I think about how much he would enjoy the work of such healers as Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Sue Morter, who work with what he would call the one energy behind back of all that is energized. And so anyway, Ernest once said that anything that comes along that is better than I have got, I want to know about it. And as a result, his philosophy of science of mind is open at the top, as he put it, for new insights for freedom and invigorating ways to present spiritual information. And I just kind of align with his philosophy and keep reading. And I hope you keep reading too. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I love that. I heard a couple of things I hadn't heard before. That was great. Wonderful. Our next speaker is Maureen Bishop. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everybody from Hawaii. The journey of freedom. Well, to me, it's the road to self-discovery. And I believe that all roads lead to Rome. We're all on that journey, and we're all going to get there. Ernest Stevens says that we're all going to get to heaven, he calls it. But and as Ram Dass said, we're here to walk each other home. So a little bit about me and my self-discovery. As a child, my mother was Catholic, and I learned a lot of prayers. My father was Lutheran, so Lutherans, you have to learn the Bible. But I had a craving at the age of 3 to know God, to really see God. And so I would pray in the evenings before I went to bed and kind of keep my eye out for God. But I realized that my parents' path was not my path. So when I was in college at UCLA, I did study Buddhism, but I also took initiation in Transcendental Meditation, which is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And it changed my life. I had a transcendent experience of love and light. And from that experience, I was still searching out there, but realizing, it's also in here. This is God. God is love. God is in me, around me, and through me. And what I learned from that experience and my whole path was that God is love and in action. And love is always moving through me, and I am one with it. So some of you, I've shared some of my experiences and some of my teachers. I met the Dalai Lama on 2 occasions. This was with Reverend Mary Manon Morrissey, my former Unity minister. And I worked with Mother Teresa at the House of the Dying, Kaligat it's called. And I learned that everybody was God in disguise, and it was for me to give love to someone who's dying as just keeping that action of love going. I also, in addition to Unity Church, I attended an ashram in Portland, Oregon for a few years. In 2001, right here in Honolulu, I found Reverend Frank White at the Religious Science Church of Honolulu. In 2008, Dr. Tom Sanner. And all of these experiences and all of these people are my spiritual family, and all of you are my spiritual family because we're all one. So the three greatest gifts that I have received on this road trip: meditation, an amazing, amazing experience. Yoga. I don't do as much yoga as I used to, but our bodies are the temple of the divine. And I believe it's important to acknowledge the body, love the body. The third gift, prayer. Prayer always works. It's a giving back to spirit. You're connecting with spirit when you pray. So Ernest, he wrote a book called Voice Celestial. And a lot of you, it's a huge, huge book. It's a huge undertaking, but Dr. Tom made it easier for me. And like the last 3 chapters really focus on Christianity. And the Voice Celestial opened up for me in a metaphysical key to freedom of understanding and our relationship to the one. By all of a sudden, all my background in Christianity and all of the scripture came alive again. It's like that. I have it posted on here. This poem by T.S. Eliot: "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." And that's how just reading and having teachers and listening and praying and meditating, all of a sudden I have a new vision of scripture. I have a new vision of life. Leslie mentioned it too. In Sanskrit, there's a saying which is Tatvas Asam. You are that. You are it. You are God. And in the New Testament, Jesus says, I think it's in John 10, he says, "Don't you know that you're God's?" And Psalms even says it too. Psalms 82, "You're God's and you're children of the Most High." So that's who you are. It's all God, and you're one with God, so you are God. And this love that's flowing through you is God in action. So just to sum this up, friendly advice. God is love in action. Judge no one, including yourself. We're all on this road to experience, this road of discovery. And the road to freedom really lies in the intelligent use of the law of mind, as far as I'm concerned. And all the power of the universe is with you. So declare your freedom. Say, "I am free," because you're an expression of the divine. You are all the attributes of God, especially love, but also joy and peace and power and life and light and all of these attributes. You're beautiful. You're unlimited. And just remember, you are loved. You are worthy and you are love. So thank you, God. And so it is.
Thank you, Maureen. That was beautiful. This is fun, hearing everybody's different take. I'm enjoying it very much. Thank you. And our next practitioner to speak is Relaine Clark. Welcome, Relaine.
Thank you. Reverend Michelle talked about compassion this month as a very unifying, powerful aspect of God. So that's what I'm going to be speaking about. I'm going to tell a story. This is a true story from long ago that happened in what is now present-day Poland. The events described may not be factually accurate, but in the most important respects, I believe this story to be as true as any story that has ever been told. A traveler was passing through the outskirts of a town and came upon a newly dug grave in the middle of a field. At the head of the grave was a simple marker made of wood that said, "Here lies Yosel." "That's strange," thought the traveler. "Why has this man been buried in this field? Why hasn't he been given a decent burial in the cemetery?" The traveler entered the town a short time later and sought out the local rabbi, who graciously invited him into his home. The traveler inquired about the lonely grave he had seen. How did such a thing come to be? And why wasn't this Yosel buried in the cemetery with everyone else? "Truthfully, he was lucky to be buried at all," said the rabbi. "Actually, I put him in the ground all by myself. No one would bury him, let alone mourn him. You see, Yosel was the stingiest man that ever lived. Even when he knew he was about to pass, our burial society asked him to pay for his funeral, and Yosel simply refused." "That's amazing. So you buried him yourself?" "Yes." "Well, you did a noble thing then, even if this Yosel didn't deserve it." The rabbi bowed his head, and just then there was a knock on the door. Opening the door, there was a very poor man dressed in rags. But that was not the worst of it. He looked extremely worried. "What can I do for you?" "I need some money to buy something to eat for myself and my family." The rabbi took some money from his pocket. He blessed him and shut the door. The rabbi returned to the traveler. But just as they were resuming their conversation, there was another knock on the door. Excusing himself once again, he opened the door, and there was a second impoverished man. "What can I do for you?" "I need some money for food." Reaching into his pocket again, he gave him some money, he blessed him, and he shut the door. Just then he returned back to speak with the traveler. There was another third knock on the door, and the rabbi excused himself, and he opened the door to find yet another poor man there. What's more, as he looked over his shoulder, he could see many more people heading to his home. To this man, he asked, "What is going on here? I never knew there were so many impoverished people in our town. How has this happened? Where have all you been hiding? And why are you suddenly coming to me?" No one needed help until now. For years, there has been someone who took care of all of the poor people, all of us. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, every Wednesday, an envelope with enough money for the week would appear under our doors of our homes. But now Wednesday has come and gone, and there are no envelopes under our doors. What are we to do? As the rabbi searched his home for coins to give to the poor people, he continued to wonder out loud to the traveler, "What do you think's going on here?" The traveler was indeed a traveler in the deepest sense of the term. He was a man of the world. "By the way, when was it that Yosel died?" "It was last Thursday." "And today is Thursday again, so the end of the envelopes corresponds with the death of the miser." Now both the rabbi and the poor people gathered around the traveler and looked in disbelief. "You're not suggesting that Yosel is the one that was giving away the money, are you?" "Well, I don't see any other explanation there could be. This is not a village where a lot of people come and go. No one else has passed. It must be him." The rabbi's eyes widened, first in amazement and then in realization of the truth. Yosel had been a miser, but a holy miser. Everyone had been wrong about him, and that was just the way he had wanted it. Wow. So that very next day, the entire town's whole population gathered together to mourn Yosel's passing. As the rabbi gave his eulogy and asked everyone to pray for forgiveness, they all stood together, and those who had thought Yosel was beneath their contempt now looked up to him as a truly righteous person, the more so since he'd kept his virtue a secret. But yet, another completely unexpected event took place. As the rabbi was eulogizing Yosel, the holy miser, the people in the village were praying for Yosel to forgive them. The rabbi fainted, seemingly losing consciousness. Everyone was very worried that the rabbi was ill or had died. After a period of time, the rabbi stirred and awoke and seemed fine and was eager to speak about his experience. He said he had had a vision. He was high above the earth with Yosel. who was shining with a radiant light. Yosel, I'm so sorry about the way we treated you. We just didn't know. Of course, said Yosel kindly. I didn't want you to know. Please tell everyone that I do not ask for their forgiveness. It wasn't for the purpose of obtaining anything, and certainly not for the recognition. It was for the giving that I received. But still, you must be really gratified to have been up in the celestial realms with all the great matriarchs and patriarchs. The very name, he started naming all these people, and the chill went down the rabbi's back in excitement. But he was surprised that there was a somewhat distant look on the face of Yosel. Isn't being in the presence of these great souls the supreme achievement of creation? Isn't it the most a soul can ever hope to attain? Yes, it's very wonderful, agreed Yosel. But, said the rabbi expectantly, but? And then Yosel spoke with sudden conviction. But nothing, not even being in the presence of the Creator, can compare with the slipping of the envelopes under the doors on Wednesday nights. And I'd like to end this story with a side note that my rabbi at our synagogue visited Poland and found Yosel's actual grave. And right next to it is the rabbi's.
Oh, that was a great story. I love that story. Oh, we were just doing our meditation earlier today about giving and receiving. What a perfect.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, there is only one mind because I just made it up on the fly. So I must have been plugged into you. Thank you, Verlaine. That was a lovely story. I appreciate you sharing.
You're welcome, or you might have been plugging into Yosel.
There you go, Yosel. Thank you, Yosel. Our next speaker, a fan favorite, Rob Mcgregor.
All right, thank you. I am going to commandeer control of your computer. And there we have it. And it's really interesting to see how people have responded to this, the challenge of tackling the journey to freedom. For me, my definition of freedom, let's see if I can get this. There we go. My definition of freedom is that it is a condition in which you can experience whatever it is you wish to experience when you wish to experience it. And there are two things that are true about this. Number one, this is exactly what everybody wants. And number two, this is what our philosophy delivers. I still remember the day I was sitting in the Sunday service at Kathy Hearn's Pacific Church when she floated the idea that a higher level of spirituality seems to cause your manifestations to occur faster. And my research into this idea led me to conclude that this is true and to develop Rob's second law of directed thought, which states a higher level of spirituality will reduce the average time it takes for a thought to manifest. And this is absolutely true for me. And now remember, every thought that you have will, after a seemingly random time delay, manifest as either an experience or an aspect of an experience. It has to. It's the law. When you have a thought, the resulting experience could show up in a few seconds or a few months, but the average time it takes for a thought to manifest is controlled by your level of spirituality, and your level of spirituality is controlled by your adherence to regular spiritual practice. Now, I want to talk to you about randomness and its relationship to optimum spirituality, and the concept that maximum spirituality does not equal optimum spirituality. So, what does maximum spirituality look like? It looks like zero time delay between the time you have a thought and the time that thought manifests. And I'll admit this idea of instant manifestation is alluring. Say you're throwing a big party and you notice that there's not enough food for all your guests. Wouldn't it be convenient to just say abracadabra, loaves and fishes all around, and suddenly all your guests have loaves and fishes, or at least chips and salsa, you know? So that's the maximum spirituality. But the novelty wears off, and actually it's not fun. This is why you, as God, gave power to this guy, subjective mind, which is a thought scrambler. It makes your life more interesting. Its job is to randomize the order in which your thoughts manifest. Because of this, you don't have to know which of your thoughts is going to manifest next. You have no clue. Because of this, life is an adventure. Now, your level of spiritual practice determines how interesting your life is, because reducing your spiritual practice decreases your predictability of events in your life, making life more interesting. But can life be too interesting? Oh, yeah, it can. Stage 4 cancer is very, very interesting. Financial ruin is very interesting. All your loved ones departing is very interesting. Now, I want life to be interesting, but not that interesting. I want adventure, but not that much adventure. So what is the right amount of spiritual practice that gives you the right amount of adventure in life? That's a personal question, and I can't tell you what's right for you, but I can tell you my criteria. If some of my idle thoughts manifest within a couple of hours of having those thoughts, then I know that my spiritual practices are sufficient. I'm talking about particularly obscure thoughts. Say in life you have an experience that includes some reference to some obscure subjects, like, say, silly putty. Well, that's amazing. There's a reference to spiritual putty I just see showing up on television, and I was just thinking of silly putty a couple hours ago. Or say you're walking around and you see like a beehive hairdo, and you're thinking, that's amazing. Just 3 hours ago, I was thinking about beehive hairdos. Or maybe say you see some image of McGruff the crime dog, and you're thinking, that's crazy. This morning I was thinking about McGruff the crime dog. Spiritual practice gives you more control over what happens to you. It makes your life predictable, but less interesting. You get to decide how predictable you want life to be. But what is the right amount of predictability? What is the right balance between predictability and adventure? Now, my metric for optimum spirituality is how many times per day will obscure thoughts become experiences in a short amount of time. And my target is to witness an average of 2 unique thoughts / manifestation events per day. That's how I know I'm in the zone. That's how I know that my spiritual level is right where I want it to be. That's how I know I have enough predictability, but life is exciting. That's a sweet spot for me. This is what makes life really fun. And I invite you to find your own perfect balance for you. My time is up, and I thank you for listening.
Wow, that was great. Thank you. I love visual aids. It was perfect. Thank you, Rob. That was so great. I'm going to have to think about that. Thank you so much. I know we've gone a little long today, but that's okay. We, our final speaker, we've saved the best for last for you, Robert. Oops, my timer just went off. So you were right on, Rob. My timer just went off for you, is Robert Brown. So welcome, Robert.
Good morning, everybody. I don't know why Michelle always has me following Rob, but it's it's a challenge. It's been a lot of variety today. I'm going to speak from a more personal point of view. Maureen did as well. Maybe that's why we're together. But anyway, I began my journey to freedom 76 years ago in Grenada City Hospital, Grenada, Mississippi. That journey took me from Mississippi to New York City to Southern California to Vietnam to Northern California to Virginia, back to Northern California, and finally back to Southern California. It's been a real trip. It's been said that the path of your life can change in an instant. I know that to be a true statement because that's exactly what happened with me. That instant occurred on November 1st, 2014, when I looked across a crowded restaurant floor at my 40th law school reunion and I saw Maureen Bishop. I had only seen her once in 40 years, but lightning struck me and I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. That magical moment began a new phase in my life because it started me on a new path full of love and joy, of travel, of adventure, of new experiences, new knowledge, and new friends. In addition, and more importantly for the subject of today's talks, it was the first step on my spiritual journey in science of mind, to which Maureen introduced me in late 2014. My journey for freedom, to freedom, really began then. For at least the previous 45 to 50 years, I had been an avowed agnostic. I loved the agnostic prayer, "Oh God, if there is a God, save my soul if I have one." You know, covering your bases. I was in rebellion against the Roman Catholic dogma of my youth. I never would have predicted that I would find my way back to God. But of course, I now know that there was no finding involved because God was never lost. God was always right here inside me, and I was always within God. I just needed to learn that again. As Ernest Holmes has said, through the power of love, we can let go of past history and begin again. Love heals, forgives, and makes whole. And it certainly did for me. My love for Maureen, that was awakened in November 2014, directly led me to my spiritual awakening and my realization that I could love people and I could love God. And there was really no difference and no distinction and no separation. So I went, that journey to freedom took me from an openly agnostic person to a religious science practitioner that sits here before you today. It's not been an easy path, but I've enjoyed every moment of it. Michelle, could you show that quote? Henry David Thoreau said at one point that as a single footstep will not make a path on the earth, so a single thought will not make a pathway in the mind. To make a deep physical path, we walk again and again. To make a deep mental path, we must think over and over the kind of thoughts we wish to dominate our lives. Now, to me, that sure sounds like change your thinking, change your life, which is a truth that I now embrace. What I try to do each and every day is to see God in every person I encounter, whether I encounter them personally or on the television or movies or whatever. Every single day, I awake to the realization that I am an individualized expression of the divine. And I affirm my oneness with God and with every single person on this planet. Not always successful, but I now choose to live a life of gratitude, love, and joy, and to inspire others to follow my example. I have gratitude for everything that has occurred to me in my life, and they haven't always been good things when I experienced them. But I am thankful for all of them because they have led me to the person I am today on this journey to freedom. Dr. Joe Dispenza says, the longer you linger in gratitude, the more you draw your new life to you. For gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. And that's certainly been true for me once I discovered the immense power of gratitude and the immense power of love. Now, I'd like to conclude my portion of today's festivities by reading a poem by an anonymous poet. The poem was provided to me and others in Dr. Tom Sanner's classes. And for me, it captures the essence of the metaphysical philosophy that we all live in our daily lives, the science of mind. It's entitled God's Will. God's will is the phrase they mindlessly use. So no matter what happens, that God can't lose. Millions can suffer in Earth's darkest holes, yet millions keep saying that God's in control. It's time to wake up and open our eyes. We are responsible for who lives and who dies. It's not God's will that creates all the fuss, because how does God act except acting through us? We are responsible. We are the ones to stop the suffering of our daughters and sons. God will not act, will not intervene. It's up to each of us to clean up the scene. We are the ones who can end all the pain and bring peace to earth by believing we can. God's will is a slogan that prevents us from growing and keeps us in bondage and stops us from knowing that we have the power to make all things right, to end all the fear and bring warmth to the night. So let's claim our dominion and consciousness fill by proclaiming the truth that we are God's will. Thank you. God bless you all, and namaste.
Thank you so much, Robert. I love, love, love that God's Will poem. Actually, would you mind sending a copy to me?
Yes, I could do that. I knew you were going to ask that.
Bless your heart. I'll post it on our Facebook page, and that way everybody can have it.
Okay.
Who wrote it?
It's anonymous.
Oh, it's anonymous. Anonymous wrote it.
Okay. Anonymous.
Yeah, anonymous. Well, it's perfect, and you're right. It does really kind of encapsulate what we teach. That it's us. We are the ones. We are the chosen. This was fabulous. I really enjoyed hearing everybody's take on a journey to freedom, and just goes to further validate the idea that each of us is an individualized expression of this one life, and the way that we interpret it is magnificent and unique. So this is our time for conscious giving. I'm going to put up the slide about the many ways that we have that you can give, which I'm sure you've seen before often. And I want to again thank and appreciate those who continue to support the center. And we've been talking, I did the meditation earlier today about giving and receiving, and Relane's talk was about giving and receiving, and somebody else's too as well, I can't remember. But this is a spiritual practice and a spiritual principle that we practice of giving to where we're spiritually fed, giving to what we believe in, giving to what we know goes out to do the kind of work that we want to see done in the world. So we have Venmo, or we have Tithely, or we have you can send a snail mail check to Jim Massapus, who's our assistant treasurer, and I think in the chat is the address. So I invite you to, if you are giving a financial gift to our center, to imagine that you're holding it in your hand, over your heart, wherever you want to hold it, and to say the affirmation with me. I recognize that my gift is an instrument of the energy and love of God. As it flows from me, it uplifts and advances all life, including mine. I give and receive joyously. I am so grateful, and so it is. And I do believe that we have Rob. I don't know if you knew Rob, but I believe you're doing the closing prayer.
Robert, there we go. Yes, Robert warned me about this, and I immediately forgot. So, hey.
You can wing it. You're
We're
good at it.
Wing it. Sure. We always do anyway. Hey, this is a great opportunity. This is a great opportunity to be grateful, to say thank you for all the goodness in our lives and the goodness that we have immediately experienced right here, right now, in this congregation, in this session we've just shared. And I am so happy for all the wonderful viewpoints of God, and every single one of them is true. I am so grateful for so many ways to look at the journey to freedom, which is our path, which is our journey, which is the life that we have. Thank you, God, for this wonderful experience and this opportunity to figure this stuff out for us. To look around and say, hey, geez, this is, I can look at it this way, I can look at it that way. And it all brings us right to exactly where we want to be. And we are so happy and we are so grateful and we are so lucky to live this life in God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. I release this word, I let it go. And together we say, and so it is.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. We're going to finish by singing, it's like a chant. May we be filled with loving kindness, and I'll share the lyrics here and we can hear Richard's music.
May I be filled. Listen. Can you hear me? May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. And may we be happy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's participated. Thank you for, thank you, everybody. It was wonderful. Thank you, Richard.